Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week 13 Highlight Haven NFL Recap Show. I'm your host, Matthew Heiserman, and today we are joined by Josh Wolver of Josh's Sports Report to break down each and every game that took place during Week 13 of the NFL season. Josh, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, we will be taking callers throughout the stream, so feel free to call in using the link in the chat. With that being said, we do have a lot of great games to break down, so let's jump right into it. Starting with Texans at Jaguars. Texans 23 to 20 victory in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence did leave this game in the second quarter. He suffered a concussion after a very dirty hit. I don't know if you saw that hit. It was a really bad hit. Just a terrible look for football in general, to be honest. Mac Jones played the rest of the game for Jacksonville, and he played pretty well during the time he was out there. Jacksonville was down 23-6, and Mac Jones helped them climb out of that deficit. However, it wasn't enough to pick up the victory. Jones was 20 for 32, 235 passing yards, and two touchdowns. His main receiver was Parker Washington, who got 6 receptions for 103 receiving yards and a touchdown, as well as Brian Thomas Jr., who had 4 receptions for 76 receiving yards and a touchdown. CJ Stroud, solid game, 22 of 34, 242 passing yards and a touchdown. And Joe Mixon, another incredible game for him. He has just been simply unstoppable this season. He had 20 carries for 101 rushing yards and one touchdown. Mixon became the third player in NFL history to have 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown during 6 road games in a season. He also has 12 total touchdowns in 10 games so far this season. He's just put on an absolute masterclass. And then Nico Collins is back and better than ever. 8 receptions, 119 receiving yards. Collins has averaged 88 receiving yards since returning from his injury. Jacksonville has now lost 5 straight and are 2-10 on the year.
Yeah, I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence after that hit.
Yeah.
He goes to slide and tries to protect himself, and obviously, you're right. That's not the look that football's going to want. It's a defenseless player going in for a slide, and then Alshire goes up high on him in the head and neck area. It's debatable whether he had enough time to slow down and get out of the way, but
Well, he knew that
regardless,
Lawrence was going to slide. That's another thing.
right. You're right. And since it's a quarterback, there's just such different standards. I mean, if that's anybody else on the field, go ahead and hit him as hard as you want. But since it's the quarterback, there's different standards and there's different rules around protecting him. But my main point is that I just hope it's a speedy recovery for Trevor Lawrence. His neck snapped back really quickly, and it looked bad. It looked certainly bad in real time and worse in slow mo. But as for the rest of the game, I'm honestly pretty proud of how Mac Jones played. If you're Jacksonville, 2 touchdowns. It was not a bad game, and this was all while being down when down at halftime, down after halftime. It was a 14-point fourth quarter, and maybe a little bit of garbage time scoring, just trying to claw back into it. You really knew they didn't have much of a shot, but regardless, they do their thing and make it a 3-point game final. Houston gets the win 8-5, and you mentioned how good Joe Mixon has been. He adds another one to that. He rushed for 5 yards a carry this game, a touchdown, and then Dalton Schultz and Nico Collins combined for over 170 yards and a touchdown. They've been huge, and Nico Collins has been great for the Texans. But overall, as a team, I feel like Houston just hasn't been as good as what we expected them to be going into the year. We expected them to be a powerhouse. CJ Stroud to take that next step of development. I think Joe Mixon has done a great job complementing alongside him. But at 8-5, right, and they are leading their division, and it's a pretty weak one at that. But they've taken some rough losses, and a 3-point win against Jacksonville is not one that you want to add to your resume coming off a 5-point loss against the Titans. So it's been a little rocky lately for the Texans. Not to say that they can't straighten things out. Regardless, they get the win. And let's move on to Colts Patriots.
Yeah, Colts Patriots, Colts 25-24 victory. Anthony Richardson led a game-winning drive that ended with a 3-yard touchdown to Alec Pierce. Then Richardson ran for the 2-point conversion that gave Indianapolis the lead. Joey Sly missed a 68-yarder that would have won the game for New England. Obviously, not his fault whatsoever. That would have been the longest field goal made in NFL history. So, I mean, obviously you expect him to miss that one, but I guess they tried in case they somehow pull off any miracles there. Anthony Richardson, 12 of 24, 109 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, as well as 2 interceptions. He wasn't necessarily the most efficient in this game, but not a terrible performance from him overall. Jonathan Taylor, 96 rushing yards and a receiving touchdown. Taylor has at least 96 rushing yards in 6 different games so far this season. Drake May, on the other hand, in comparison to Richardson, Drake May was really efficient. 24 of 30, 238 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibbs combined for 135 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. And the Patriots tight end duo of Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper combined for 117 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. The Colts had just 2 penalties for 15 yards, while the Patriots had 7 penalties for 88 yards. Indianapolis also went 3 of 3 on 4th downs. I think that was a major storyline of this game.
Yeah, Colts pick up the 1-point win. These are two teams that heading into this game and frankly heading into this season, we could have telegraphed it all the way from week one. We knew this was not going to be the most exciting matchup, but it turned out to actually be one of the better games this week. You mentioned the 2-point conversion to one at the end. The stats are not going to tell you how good Anthony Richardson played in this game. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he played great with 2 interceptions and almost in a little more than 109 yards throwing. But that's just because Jonathan Taylor got a majority of the workload, 25 carries for 96 yards. He was a workhorse in this game. They were grounded and pounded with him. Richardson only completes half his passes, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. But that game-winning drive, including that rushing touchdown, tallies 3 total on the day for Richardson in a good game, right? And he's been inconsistent all year. Pretty good game. Another guy that was consistent across the way, Drake May. You get the interception, but also touchdown. Only 16 completions on the day, goes with 240 yards almost, and then Antonio Gibson got the rushing touchdown. And that was a balanced game for New England. You take a look, 222 passing yards, 200 rushing yards. It was a dysfunctional game for the Colts when you look at those stats, 109 passing yards, 144 rushing yards, and you're saying, how the heck could they possibly win this game? Well, Matt, you brought it up earlier, 2 penalties, 15 yards compared to 7 penalties, 88 yards. I mean, it was a pretty clean game. Neither team punted a lot, but it wasn't clean in the turnover department. The Colts threw an interception. The Patriots threw an interception. New England also allowed 4 sacks. And I think, honestly, at the end there for Indianapolis, it was a bit of them playing like a scrappy team sort of mentality. Like we just want to go out there and prove what we can do. And going for the 2-point conversion, that's a risky move, and especially for a quarterback with not much experience in this league, but it pays off for them as they grab the win.
Is there really a downside to not going to that 2-point conversion, though? You're a team that's not going to make the playoffs playing the
Mhm.
Patriots. There's a good chance you would win in overtime, I'd say, if they did happen to go into overtime. Um, but I'd still say that they made the right decision there. Not too much to lose at this point in week 13 of the season when they've kind of already proven that they're not going to be a playoff team.
Right. And you mentioned I also would honestly give them the upper hand in overtime. The thing is about a 2-point conversion, you get one thing to go wrong, and that's going to cost you the game. So there's a sense to play for overtime there, just because there's a lot. If you think you play better team football than them, and you can complement a good defense with a good offense, that's what you need in overtime. One good drive of defense, one good drive of offense, and I think you go for that. But I think that in this game, they knew that the Patriots just outplayed them in this game, and so maybe they thought overtime wouldn't be in their favor. So they go ahead and take the 2, and it pays off for them. 25-24 win.
And then also, I mean, you can't necessarily talk about it like the extra point is guaranteed. I would know that as a Commanders fan, obviously. I mean, you could imagine that they would have made that extra point, but
Yeah,
always there's that one circumstance where they end up missing it.
or
Moving
2
over
in
to
the
the next,
Jets game,
hmm? Yeah,
or there's the 2 circumstances.
yeah. Moving over to the next game, Chargers at Falcons. Chargers 17, Falcons 13. This is a very, very fraudulent Falcons team. I'm just going to say that. I think we've known that for a while, but this just proves it. This was an all-around ugly game for them. I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, there's no farther to look than Kirk Cousins' stat lines. No touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, I think you could just leave it at that. And when you're scoring 13 points, and yeah, 4 interceptions isn't going to help. The 1 touchdowns on Bijan Robinson, who is clearly Atlanta's best player, 102 yards and the score, but 4 interceptions, including 1 62-yard pick six. That pass was absolutely telegraphed. Kirk Cousins stared right into the DB's eyes. The guy totally had a beat on it, and he went 62 yards to the house. Justin Herbert, not good at all. Not good at all, but he didn't throw an interception. That's the difference in this game. Kirk Cousins turned the ball over 4 times. Justin Herbert played clean football. Nothing was working for Los Angeles besides Ladd McConkey. 9 receptions, 117 yards. The other Chargers, the next best Charger in the receiving department was Quentin Johnston with 12 yards. It just shows you how much Ladd McConkey meant. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the running game was any better. Gus Edwards, 32 yards. Vidal, 20 yards. Nothing was working. But the Chargers did get a little fake punt action. That was pretty nice. They could pick up a 17-13 win. Hey, these are 2 teams that we could realistically see in the playoffs. The Chargers at 8-4. 100% in the dogfight for that AFC wild card, and Atlanta is leading their division despite the loss at 6-6. So Los Angeles comes out and has 187 yards of total offense. That is embarrassingly bad. But the Falcons lost this game. The Chargers by no means won this game. The Falcons totally lost this game. They went 3 of 14 on 3rd down. They throw 4 interceptions. And that's why they lost 17-13. These are 2 teams that are most likely going to go in the playoffs in one of the uglier games of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it right there. But, I mean, obviously, Kirk Cousins, this has been an ongoing trend that we've talked about during this show.
Mm-hmm.
He has a good week, then the Falcons win. He has a bad week, the Falcons lose. And it's kind of been fitting into that trend so far for them the entire season. McConkey, I know you were talking about how good he did. He had 78% of the Chargers' total receiving yards. That just shows how much of an impact he made in this one. He's also averaged 92 receiving yards in his past 6 games. Bijan did a lot in the run game, 102 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, but it wasn't quite enough. Ray McLeod, 4 receptions, 95 receiving yards. And then Drake London also did pretty good, 86 receiving yards. And you talked about this. Los Angeles, 187 total yards despite the win. I don't think people understand how bad that is. That is atrocious. You wouldn't win 99% of the games that you get 187 total yards unless your defense is playing amazing. And their defense didn't play amazing in this game. They got 4 interceptions, but that's because Kirk Cousins gifted them to Los Angeles. They didn't necessarily do anything that makes you say, hey, that's a really good defense, you know? But, I mean, when you look at it, Atlanta had nearly double that yardage total with 350. And you said that Atlanta is currently leading their division. They're tied with the Bucks at 6-6, but they do have a lead due to tiebreaker rules, obviously. I could definitely see Tampa Bay stealing the division. We're going to get into this more later, but 4 of their 5 games coming up, Tampa Bay, are against teams below 500. And I don't know exactly what Atlanta's schedule is for the rest of the season, but I can't imagine it's as easy as the Buccaneers schedule. And I'd say with Mike Evans back, the Bucs have just been playing like a better football team. Now moving over to the next game, though. Seahawks at Jets. I'm sure you have a lot to say about this game. Seahawks 26-21 victory. I know you were in attendance. What happened? This was a crazy roller coaster of a game for New York.
Matt, what happened? I mean, that's just going to be, I mean, if there was 2 words to talk and just to sum up the Jets season, it would just be what happened. I mean, this is a 3-9 football team. I'll tell you right now, Seattle 7-5. The Jets were actually favored heading into this game, which I was surprised about. I know you talked about how much you didn't like Vegas favoring them, and I was taking a look at the odds and stuff as we were rolling into the parking lot at MetLife Stadium, and I was like, gosh, are the Jets really favored to win this game? I mean, I just feel like Seattle's just been playing better football. We don't know how consistent the Jets offense is, and I will say this right now, Seattle 100% deserved to lose this game. They score 26-21 is the final score in this one. Highlight for the Jets, absolutely. I was having a blast on that Kene Nwagwu 100-yard kick return to the house. That was pretty awesome, and one that you honestly don't see very often. It's almost all touchbacks in this day and age of the NFL. So that was an electric play, and I'm very sorry if I pronounced that name wrong. I really don't know how to say that. I tried my best. Aaron Rodgers, certainly not his best day. He's had worse games this year. Only the one interception, obviously, it's costly. I'll get to that. But 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he led this Jets offense decently well. There were certainly timing routes that he missed. There were certainly makeable throws that he missed. And I feel like, and I think that the pressure that was getting into him, obviously, was supposed to be an improved offensive line. It wasn't exactly there this game. From Seattle side of things, they didn't exactly do everything right. You had a pretty decent game from Geno Smith in his return to MetLife against his former team, 206 yards and a passing touchdown. Zach Charbonnet scores the game-winning touchdown there with a little under 5 minutes to go. But the turning point in this game, pretty obviously, Leonard Williams, 95-yard pick six.
99-yard. Yeah.
90, yeah, whatever. That would have made it a 3-score game for the Jets. They were knocking right on the door. They were up 21-7, I believe, at that point. That score, maybe puts the game away. If you're talking about a 3-touchdown game before halftime, the script gets flipped. Seattle instead gets the touchdown, and it becomes a 1-possession game just like that, 21-14. That was 100% the deciding factor in this game. And then the second one, down the stretch, the Jets were penalized way too much. They get flagged 12 times, and it totals up 83 yards. I'm talking about super important plays. Davante Adams, maybe a 50-yard reception, is going to get called back for offensive pass interference. You have multiple bad penalties. You have an illegal shift, an illegal formation, just penalties that really don't need to happen, honestly. You would take a false start on 3rd and 10 to make it 3rd and 15. You get called for multiple defensive pass interferences on Seattle's last drive, one of which was highly questionable, but nonetheless, the flag was thrown. I just think that the Jets aren't in this game if Seattle doesn't fumble the ball twice. Both times on returns, Laviska Shenault coughed up the ball for Seattle. I don't know what he was doing, and I don't know why he continued to stay out on the field. He played one of the worst football games I've ever seen. Certainly the worst live performance I've ever seen. It was terrible. Every single kickoff, he could not hold the ball, Matt. I don't know if they were showing this on Red Zone, if you watched any bit of this game at all. The fumbles were crazy. I'll leave it up to you. Jets lose by 5. They continue to be a train wreck, and they're at 3-9.
And I do apologize. I said Leonard Williams had a 99-yard pick six. It was actually 92 yards. I was thinking of the 99-yard kick return that you mentioned that also occurred in this game. I mean, Seattle had no business winning this game. They were down 14-0. Then they were down 21-7, I believe.
Yep.
But no, I mean, things just went quickly downhill for New York in this one. JSN and DK Metcalf combined for 140 receiving yards on 4 receptions each. Smith-Njigba has had at least 69 receiving yards in his past 5 games. He's been on a tear recently. Geno Smith got revenge against the team that drafted him. 20 of 31, 206 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Not a crazy stat line by any means. As you mentioned, Charbonnet got that go-ahead 8-yard rushing touchdown that gave Seattle the lead with just over 5 minutes remaining, and New York wasn't able to fire back after that play happened. Davante Adams had one of his better games as a Jet so far. 5 receptions, 66 receiving yards, and a touchdown. I think a lot of this was New York's coaching. They had a terrible, terrible coaching performance. As you mentioned, the penalties were absolutely, heartbreaking for them. 12 penalties for 83 yards. That's way, way more penalties than you can afford to have, especially in a close game where the other team is starting to mount a comeback. Just a bunch of dumb mistakes like that are the ones that can be super, super costly. The Jets have lost 8 of their last 9 games. This season has just been a mess for them. That's the only way to put it. But moving over to the next game, we're going back to back on your favorite team to my favorite team. A little bit of a better outcome for my favorite team in this one. Commanders 42-19 victory over the Tennessee Titans. Noah Brown did leave with a rib injury. Man, this felt good. This felt absolutely incredible for Washington. I just wrapped up an interview with a Hogs Haven analyst, and so you can go check that out if you want a little more insight on this game. But this was just a much needed victory. We had lost 3 straight. We're going into the bye next week. It's a really late bye in week 14. You can't afford to lose 4 games going into your bye. Losing 4 straight games going into your bye is absolutely terrible. You lose all momentum. So it is just super, super important that we won this game. This was a game we shouldn't have lost, and luckily we were able to take care of business. Washington had 21 points in the first quarter, and we're up 28-0 just 19 minutes into the game, just over 19 minutes into the game. This was the first time Washington had won a home game in December since 2017. That's
Yeah.
absurd. That's 7 years without a home win in December. That just shows you all the tragedy this team has gone through with the Dan Snyder era, obviously. Will Levis, 18 of 37, 212 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. I will say I was able to enjoy watching Will Levis play this game a lot more than I would have been able to if we were losing or if it was a close game. The fact that we got off to an early lead, I was able to realize that Will Levis was having an incredible game. He made some incredible passes, and it was never like I'm worried that they're coming back because we're already up 28-0. But I was able to actually just really take in what he was doing, and he made some incredible throws down the stretch. But who played better than him is obviously Jaden Daniels, 25 of 30, 206 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and an interception that wasn't really his fault whatsoever. His first 4-touchdown game in his career. Brian Robinson Jr., 16 carries, 103 rushing yards, and a touchdown. He got that 40-yard rushing touchdown on the Commanders' first drive. That was one of their more efficient drives probably all season, just a 3-play drive. It was a 9-yard play, 10-yard play, and then obviously the 40-yard touchdown. Without Ekeler, Chris Rodriguez Jr. stepped up a lot. 13 carries, 94 rushing yards, and a touchdown. I thought Jeremy McNichols maybe would fill in that role for Ekeler, but it seems to have been Chris Rodriguez in this game. He got his first touchdown of the season. And then Terry McLaurin, 8 receptions, 73 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Terry now has 9 touchdowns on the year, which is the most touchdowns he's ever gotten in a single season of his career. Zach Ertz also has a touchdown in each of his last 3 games. And another fun fact, I guess if you want to throw it in there, Bobby Wagner recorded his 100th tackle of the season in this game. He is now on a streak 100 tackles in 13 straight seasons, which is absolutely incredible for him. That's
Wow.
the most seasons with 100 tackles of any active player. So he's making a massive impact. So is Frankie Louvu, obviously. He played incredible in this game as well as Wagner. That's a great linebacker duo right there. You have the age, you have the experience in Wagner, and then Louvu, not necessarily a young guy, but a little bit younger, who's been probably Washington's best defender throughout the season. Definitely a good confidence booster for Washington, though, advancing their record to 8-5. I talked a while there. Now you can take over.
Matt, you touched on all the key points. You talked about Tennessee having a good game, Will Levis being able to execute well despite the loss, but I actually want to highlight Jaden Daniels for a bit. You mentioned the interception, but 3 passing touchdowns. That goes along with a nasty run. I mean, a quarterback should not be able to do that. I know a lot about quarterback runs as a South Carolina fan watching Lenore Sellers dance his way hopefully into the college football playoffs. But Jaden Daniels just makes it look so easy. I mean, I don't know how many guys flew off the screen trying to wrap their hands around him on that touchdown run. That was the jukes were nasty from Daniels. I love that out of him. And what's better than a good pocket passer as a mobile quarterback who can extend plays? So, Matt, I just got to say right now, knock on wood, don't jinx it, but congratulations. I think the Commanders, I can now confidently say the Commanders have hit on their franchise quarterback. Obviously, this has been something that's been developing and in the making. Obviously, we've seen his highs and we've seen his lows the past couple of weeks, but this is a bounce back win that needed to happen. You blow out a bad team. That's what good teams are built off of. Obviously, the Chiefs are a good team. They've been barely scraping by bad teams, but beating teams you need to beat nonetheless is how you get into the playoffs, is how you have a good record. Washington continues to be able to do that with this game. Terry McLaurin with another huge game. But as I look up and down this Washington receiving chart, who hauled in a pass this game, it makes me think about how well a good quarterback can impact its receivers, because you really don't have a star on this team. I guess Terry McLaurin's maybe one, but after that, you're looking at Zach Ertz and Olamide Zaccheaus and Noah Brown, right? So Jaden Daniels has been positively impacting the Commanders all season. They have a great game, toss up 42, and get the win.
Yeah, now moving over to the next game, a very high-scoring affair in this one. Steelers at Bengals. Steelers 44-38 victory. I must say, Cincinnati has been on the bad side of a lot of close games. That is, I don't know the exact number, but they've lost a lot of games within one possession this year against some really solid teams. And I know a lot of them, they've scored a lot of points. So it's definitely been some tough luck for the Bengals this year. And I know they also lost to the Ravens earlier this season, 41-38. They dropped 38 again in this game, and it still wasn't enough. I'd say the main problem for them has been their defense, allowing way too many points, especially against divisional rivals, as we've seen so far. The halftime score of this game was 27-21, which is the highest scoring first half in the 110 meetings between the Steelers and Bengals. Russell Wilson is now 5-1 as a Steelers starter in this game. He was really, really, really good. 29 of 38, 414 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That's the second most passing yards Wilson has had in a single game throughout his entire career. Najee Harris, 16 carries, 6 receptions, 75 rushing yards, 54 receiving yards, and a rushing touchdown. Harris has surpassed 100 scrimmage yards for the 4th time this season. George Pickens, 3 receptions, 74 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, a lot of his receptions were some longer receptions. He only had 3 receptions, but definitely made them count, to say the least. Pat Freiermuth, 6 receptions for 68 receiving yards and a touchdown. And then Joe Burrow, 28 of 38, 309 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Both quarterbacks were playing really, really well in this game. Chase Brown has also been electric recently. 12 carries, 3 receptions, 100 scrimmage yards, and a touchdown. Ja'Marr Chase. Wow. Ja'Marr Chase has he's been different this season. 6 receptions, 86 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Chase has 6 touchdowns in his last 3 games. This game, he got 1 touchdown. The game before that, he got 2. The game before that, he got 3. He's been absolutely critical in how many points the Bengals have scored this season. And then T. Higgins also pretty good behind Ja'Marr Chase. 5 receptions, 69 receiving yards, and a touchdown.
Matt, I gotta say, AFC North showdown divisional matchups. These games are always good. They're always good. It doesn't matter who's playing. The 4 teams in this division are dogs. I mean, it doesn't matter. Cleveland's coming in with their backup quarterback, with one of the not so great rosters in the league, and they toss out dog fights when they beat Pittsburgh by double digits in the snow. And now Steelers and Bengals in a shootout. I love it. And you mentioned when you started the Bengals 4-8, and my brother tossed this out yesterday. He said the Bengals might be the best 4-8 team of all time. Their offense has played like it. It's just been the defense that's been inconsistent. How can you let up 44 points? And this isn't a one-time occasion. How can you let it up and expect to win? You let up 44 this week, 34 last week, 35 the week before, 37 against the Eagles, 41 against the Ravens, 26 against the Chiefs, 38 to the Commanders. It's like it's a repeating theme. And the defense grabs the score in this game, but that is really what's been killing them. Sticking on the Bengals side of things, Joe Burrow, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception. Phenomenal day. Jamar Chase continues to do great things. And then Chase Brown in the rushing game also gets a score. And then Russell Wilson, times 3, 414 yards. The one interception was a costly pick six, but 414 from Russell Wilson, a guy that was listed as QB3 in week 1. I get that he was partially injured, but QB3 at week 1 is 414 yards. George Pickens hauls in a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth hauls in a touchdown. Calvin Austin does as well. And Najee Harris gets one on the ground. This game was crazy, 44-38. And if you think it stopped there with the high scoring, it didn't. It was a defensive party as well. The Steelers come away with 3 takeaways. They forced 2 fumbles, and both teams pick up an interception. There were 6 sacks in this game combined. I think the refs, I know it was a 4-quarter game. The refs must have been working like 5 overtimes. They throw 20 flags for 204 yards. The Steelers get flagged 9 times for 103 yards. The Bengals get flagged 11 times for 101 yards. Those boys in stripes were busy in this game. So were the offenses. So were the end zones. Everything happened in this game.
Yeah.
520 yards for the Steelers. This game was crazy. They improved to 9-3, and they take another step closer to winning that division. The Steelers, they're becoming legit, right? They were being called frauds. This is a big win for them. They toss up a 44-piece on the Bengals.
Yeah, just a pretty chaotic game all around with tons of production on offense, obviously. Before we move over to the next game, make sure you call in using the link in the chat and the one that I just put on screen. You can see it right there. Moving over to the next game, though. Cardinals at Vikings. Vikings 23-22 victory at home. Minnesota came back from down 13. Aaron Jones had a receiving touchdown with 1 minute and 13 seconds left that gave the Vikings the lead. Josh, you take it away.
Vikings pick up a 1-point win to improve to 10-2 on the season. The Cardinals drop, and they're no longer their division leader. Seahawks pick up the win, and they laid that division over in the NFC West. Cardinals fall to 6-6. Kyler Murray, I don't know if you saw that play where he tossed up the interception. I have no clue what he was thinking. That was one of 2 picks to go along with a touchdown, but he passed the ball 45 times. James Conner was also busy in the running department. 17 carries, 68 yards. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison continue to be that 1-2 punch in the receiving department. But it was not enough because of the Arizona turnovers. You mentioned it, that late touchdown from Aaron Jones wins them the game. Sort of buzzer beater, honestly. Not actually didn't come with zeros on the clock, but that was the nail in the coffin. Defense got the stop they needed, and they win by 1. When you look at these team stats, Arizona passes for 252 yards, 406 yards of total offense. They snapped the ball 77 times in this game, but similar to the Jets, 10 penalties for 96 yards is going to kill you, and they turned the ball over twice on 2 Kyler Murray interceptions. Minnesota, certainly not their best game of the year. They go 1 of 8 on 3rd down. They had nothing going in the running department. Aaron Jones and Sam Darnold were tied, and Cam Akers were all tied in rushing yards, each with 22, so nothing basically for them. Justin Jefferson continues to be a dog for the Vikings offense, almost 100 yards on 7 receptions. Vikings pick up the win by 1, Matt.
Yeah, again, I don't really think they should have won that game based on at least how it started. Being down 13, I think that was just an execution problem there for Arizona. Couldn't necessarily take care of it, and that's obviously going to cost them. Now they're, I think, a game behind Seattle in a really, really close division where they could win, the Rams could win, Seattle could win. So this is going to be a very costly loss down the line if they do end up not winning the division and potentially missing the playoffs because of this. Vikings went 1 of 8 on 3rd down. However, Arizona, you mentioned how big of a flag problem this game was. Arizona got called for 10 penalties, amassing for 96 yards. Those penalties are something that hurts the team so much because they can completely change the momentum of the game. Obviously, I'm not saying anything that's like unknown, but these are the simple mistakes that can change a game. And Arizona was just on the wrong side of that in this game. I don't think I realized that the Vikings were 10-2. I knew they were doing good, but
I don't feel like it.
I thought they were maybe like 9-3, maybe 8-4, but 10-2. Wow, that's really, really impressive for them.
Mhm.
And obviously, Cardinals are going to have to fight their way back to the top of the division. But pretty solid game for the Vikings in this one. Really like what I saw from McBride and Harrison, but just wasn't enough to get it done. Moving over to the next game, though, Rams at Saints. Another one possession game. Rams 21-14 victory. Taysom Hill tore his ACL in this one and will miss the rest of the season. That is a very, very big loss for New Orleans, obviously. And despite a slow start, for Los Angeles, they didn't score obviously a single point in the entire first half. They were able to pick up the slack in the second half and get the win. Matthew Stafford, 14 of 24, 183 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Kyron Williams, 15 carries for 104 rushing yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua, 5 receptions for 56 receiving yards and a touchdown. And then Derek Carr played all right. Not a crazy game by any means for him. 24 37, 184 passing yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara, 112 rushing yards in the running department right there. Marquez Valdes-Scantling now has a total of 4 touchdowns in his past 3 games. He's really stepped up, obviously, with Olave and Rashid Shaheed out for the season. The Rams still have a chance to win their division. They're most likely going to have to win at least 3 of their next 5 games to do so, I would say. I believe they're 1 game behind the Seahawks right now. I'm not fully aware of what their schedule is. Definitely wouldn't
Mhm.
rule it out, though. It's going to be really difficult, though. They're going to have to play extremely well towards the end of the season if they're going to make that happen.
Rams pick up the 21-14 win. Matt, he had a touchdown in this game, certainly not his best game with 56 yards in the receiving department, but Puka Nacua made history. Did you know that in this win, those yards, he has now surpassed 2,000 career receiving yards, and he becomes the second receiver to accomplish the feat in 24 games. Or excuse me, the third receiver to do so. Can you guess the 2 players he is tied with to do so since the AFL NFL merger in 1970? I mean, they're both active, is my clue, and they're both up and coming.
Jefferson?
Jefferson's one, and
And then
similar player to Jefferson, I'd say. Similar guy.
CD?
Jamar Chase. I was
Jamar
just thinking
Chase.
because of the gritty. But that's a pretty good company to be in. Puka Nacua continues his outstanding start to his career as really a guy that flew under the radar in the draft, has certainly made the most of his time with the Rams. You mentioned it. The Saints have confirmed Taysom Hill's injury when he was carted off is a season-ending ACL tear, which is going to be a huge bummer for them. Matthew Stafford continue his good campaign, 2024, 2 touchdowns, clean football, no interceptions, 183 yards passing. As a team, Los Angeles didn't turn the ball over, and they only committed 3 penalties. That's going to be a recipe for success. When you want to win in a game that it's a tough one, certainly not your best offensive explosion against a not so great Saints team, but playing clean football is going to be one of those keys. Saints fall to 4-8. Another loss under Darren Rizzi, and you have to wonder that interim tag is getting pretty clear that it is, in fact, an interim tag. I mean, Alvin Kamara has the best game on the field, I would say, out of anyone. Maybe you could make the argument Kyron Williams also had a great game, 15 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown for him. But just the sheer volume that the Saints fed Alvin Kamara in, especially after the Taysom Hill injury, he carried 23 times, 112 yards, a huge reason why the Saints stayed in this game. He was an absolute workhorse in this game. In the receiving department, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, a big touchdown grab. The Rams win. They improved to 6-6. again, they have one game to catch up on the Seahawks, and they're also tied with the Cardinals. Who would have thought the 49ers would be last in that division? But they have a tough draw this week against the Bills. We'll get to that one right in a second. But the Rams win,
Actually,
Saints lose.
real quick, can I just
Mhm.
add on something?
Absolutely.
I know you were mentioning Darren Rizzi's interim position is on the hot seat,
Mhm.
and he obviously fighting to get that head coaching position next year, but it's not looking great for him right now. They got off to a really hot start with Rizzi. They went 2-0 in their first two
Yep.
games. I don't know if you saw any videos of like the locker room after those wins, but they were hyped. And I think part of it is just coming out with that extra energy of we have a new head coach. We hated Dennis Allen, and now we're gonna perform better with some extra motivation, I guess, now that we have Rizzi. And they've kind of come back to reality at this point, where they're not a good team. They can't beat a team like the Rams, who I believe are a very solid team. And I mean, it's probably going to stay that way. I think Rizzi was starting to make a good case for him, maybe keeping that position. But now you realize that no matter who you are, coaching a team like the Saints, not the greatest team in the world, is going to be difficult no matter who it is. And I think that's starting to show.
Yeah, I'd agree with you that maybe also you got to take into account that the Saints had an extra bye week to prepare for this game, and they still come out obviously not
Yeah.
with their best performance, but coming off of 2 wins. He's still 2-1 as head coach, and he's got an opportunity to expand on that. Coming up on their schedule, you're looking at you're playing in New York for the Giants next week, which is easily a winnable game. I mean, I think the Commanders and Packers after that are losses, but then you go then you host the Raiders in Vegas, and depending on if the Buccaneers are starting or sitting, guys, you could also have a Week
Oh,
18 win. So
there's.
you're talking about a team with a possibility at 3 more wins in their last 5 games heading out of here.
I don't see it. There's no chance where the Bucks aren't starting their guys in that game.
I mean, it depends where the Falcons are in that divisional race. If the Buccaneers are 2 games ahead, then why not? I mean, I'm not
I
saying
guess.
they will be. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
I
a
mean,
chance
I
they're
guess you
not,
make.
and they're playing everybody. In which case,
Here's
I
the
think the
thing, though.
Saints would get
As I
smoked.
mentioned, the Bucks, 4 of their next 5 games are against below 500 teams, but I don't know what that would look like in terms of standing stuff and all that.
It's too much of a hypothetical right now to,
Yeah, yeah, too
yeah.
too
But
much of a
also
hypothetical.
you gotta
Mhm.
remember that last time the Bucks when they were playing, everyone tossed about 51 piece on them. So that's one thing to consider. But let's move over to
Mhm.
the Buccaneers game while we're on that topic. 26-23, the final in overtime. Buccaneers get the win on the road. Matt, I'll let you start us off in this game.
Yeah, Buccaneers 26-23. Chase McLaughlin had a game-winning field goal in overtime for Tampa Bay. Carolina was driving down the field in OT, but Chuba Hubbard fumbled the ball, and the Panthers never got it back.
Mhm.
Baker Mayfield, 21 of 33, 235 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Bucky Irving was the star of this game for Tampa Bay. 25 carries, 152 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown, a career high in rushing yards for him. Mike Evans, 8 receptions, 118 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Bryce Young. I'm starting to like how Bryce Young is playing. This was another really solid game for him. 26 of 46, 298 passing yards, and a passing touchdown to go along with a rushing touchdown. Young has gone 3 straight weeks without throwing an interception, which was something you could say was unimaginable for him in his rookie campaign, and then to start the season, the first 2 weeks. But no, he's looked really good out there recently. And then he's also had 2 straight weeks with over 250 passing yards and 1 touchdown. Adam Thielen, I don't know if you saw that one-handed catch he made in overtime. My goodness, maybe the catch of the week right there. Probably the catch of the week. 8 receptions, 99 receiving yards, and a touchdown for him. Bryce Young is starting to remove that bust label. I know he was quick to earn that label
Mhm.
last season. And when he got benched for Dalton, obviously the circumstances of him becoming a starter were not great with Dalton getting into that car crash and all
Mhm.
that. But it hasn't been terrible for the Panthers. Bryce Young has been balling a little bit. I have to admit he's been pretty solid, but he's making a great case. I think this is the most important part. He's making a great case to be Carolina's starting quarterback next season. which is really what he's fighting for. Because if he came back and he played terrible,
Mm.
that's when you get into conversations. Do we really want to keep this guy? Do we want to make him our future? And I think now they can feel a little more comfortable if they do end up doing that.
Yeah, Matt, and I think there's one thing to understand here, right? I mean, you mentioned that um, it wasn't the reason why Bryce Young got back into this role isn't, was because of an off the field issue, but he's earned the right to stay here. It's not like he's come back and he's just been his old self. He's certainly improved. I think maybe that sort of that statement that you're getting benched lit a fire inside of him because the Panthers have played great in their last 4 games. You beat the Saints, you beat the Giants, and then you force game-winning field goals against the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. Panthers, you're trending in the right direction right now. Nothing to be ashamed of despite the loss. You play solid against the Bucs. You force overtime and you force a game-winning kick. And then the thing I really like from Bryce Young, who you mentioned it has been improving. The no turnovers have been huge. Besides that fumble lost, I mean, the Panthers didn't turn the ball over in 4+ quarters of action. The most important quarter, unfortunately, for Chuba Hubbard is the one where they give the ball up. But the most impressive thing I saw out of the Panthers offense and Bryce Young was that last drive in the fourth quarter. It didn't win them the game, but in a 2-minute drill offense, Bryce Young led his Panthers down the field. He was confident. He was calm, cool, collected. He made the right decisions. He didn't force the ball into traffic, and he eventually got the touchdown, 25 yards. With 30 seconds left in the game to Adam Thielen on a great play. He extends it. He runs. He uses his legs, which is a good big part of his game. And props to the Buccaneers, you got to say, for fighting back. They go 30 seconds down the field with 3 timeouts. They get just into Chase McLaughlin range, who drills the 51-yarder to send the game into overtime. But the Panthers played well in this game. The Buccaneers were just that much better in the times that it mattered. The Panthers played better at certain points of this game, but the Buccaneers, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, Baker Mayfield is at his best when the lights are the brightest. Bucky Irving, 152 yards and a touchdown. A ridiculous day for the rookie. He was the star of the show for Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield, 2 interceptions on the day. That's not something you're often seeing from the Panthers defense, but they do get 2 picks in this one. Mike Evans has been a beast since returning. 118 yards on 8 receptions. That's it. A touchdown. That's almost 15 yards a catch for Evans in this one. Where would the Buccaneers be without him? They pick up a 3-point overtime win, but overall, I think the Panthers played well, and despite the 3-point loss, you got to feel like you're in a good spot at 3-9.
No, I mean, Mike Evans has been the story of the season for them. They played great with him to start. They played terrible when he got injured. Then he comes back, and now they're back in that divisional win,
Right.
I guess, conversation. But no, he's played a massive difference. Obviously, played great in this game. Moving over to Eagles at Ravens. Ravens, another loss. Eagles 24-19 victory. It's important to note, by the way, that Baltimore would have lost 24-12
Right.
if it weren't for a garbage time touchdown with 3 seconds remaining. And Jalen Hurts didn't have to do too much in this game. Only 11 completions for 118 passing yards. Did get a passing touchdown as well as a rushing touchdown. That, by the way, was a false start. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, I did. They snapped it way late.
Now the tush push is it's stupid and illegal now. It was just stupid, but now it's illegal as well because that was a clear false start.
Is that your take? It should be outlawed. I mean, I feel like football's
No,
kind of
I just hate it. It
yeah,
shouldn't be
because the
outlawed.
Eagles are so good and they play the Commanders twice a year.
No, I mean other teams can perfect it as well if they want to. It's not unfair move, but no, it's I just hate it from a Commanders perspective. But I will say
Yeah.
the Commanders were the first team to stop the tush push last season, so at least we can be proud of that. Saquon Barkley, 23 carries and 107 rushing yards to go along with 1 touchdown. Lamar Jackson, 23 of 36, 237 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry had 82 rushing yards. Henry had at least 1 touchdown in his first 11 games of the season. However, he hasn't gotten a single touchdown in Baltimore's past 2 games. I know 2 games isn't crazy, but for a guy who had a touchdown in 11 straight games, I guess that's a little bit surprising for the King right there. Philly is on an 8-game winning streak, without a doubt, a top 3 team in the NFL, in my opinion. Baltimore has gone 3-3 in their past 6 games. Baltimore is no longer the best team in the AFC, if you ask me. I would have said they were for a while. I'd say now it's the Buffalo Bills, probably.
Yeah, surely.
Of course, we still have to get into that game. That's our final game of the week. And I'll let you start. I'll let you give your opinions. But then I kind of want to talk about, is Saquon potentially the MVP this season? But
That's a good question. I'm
first,
excited for this
first
one,
give your recap.
but let's just talk a little bit about this game. You mentioned it at the end there. Baltimore takes the snap with 7 seconds. Yeah. Bottom line is the Eagles get another win against another legitimate team. They quiet the talks, Matt. Remember way back when at the start of the season when they were when they were escaping wins by winning by 3 against the Saints, winning by 4 against the Browns, losing to the Falcons by 1. Let's see here. Barely escaping a win against Jacksonville, Matt. Those days are over. Philadelphia wins 24-19, but really by more than that. The game plan, it's been Jalen Hurts for a while, and now it's take the snap, hand it to Saquon, see what he does. Giants fans got to be mad that they didn't repay this guy in the offseason and instead spent their budget on Daniel Jones. But I'm not quite sure Saquon wanted to stay in New York either way.
No, I don't think anyone would have.
Yeah, okay. Jalen Hurts gets another touchdown on the tush push. When it's 1st and goal for the Eagles, the NFL needs 10 yards for a first down. Eagles need 9.5. Except when you do it properly, and when you do it illegal, it probably shouldn't count. Refs missed that one, but nonetheless, I'm sure the Eagles would have snapped it and done the same thing later in the game. Dallas Goedert. Can't remember the last time I called his name, but he picks up a receiving touchdown in this game. Sort of one of those lost names that used to be great. This at the midway point of the season, I would have told you whoever had the better game here and whoever scored the more touchdowns in this one would probably be your offensive player of the year, considering these are your 2 candidates, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. And Saquon continues his magical campaign. Another great one. Derrick Henry, certainly not his best game. He's done better. And that's just the storyline for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, the 2 passing touchdowns. It's really 1 if you take away that one in the final seconds there. The Eagles are on a hot streak right now. Seems like they cannot be stopped. They improved to 10-2 on the year. Baltimore falls to 8-5. There's legitimate concerns on this Ravens team that we didn't see, just a few weeks ago. Team that has lost 2 out of 3. They lose to the Steelers. Now they lose to the Eagles. There's concerns on this football team for Baltimore and the Eagles, but I'm super excited about what you have to talk about with Saquon. Go ahead.
I mean, Saquon's my MVP. And I could have made that my weekly wrap take that we're going to get into, but I have a different question for that. Saquon's my MVP. He has 10 different games this season with over 100 scrimmage yards. And it's we see a bunch of running backs get 106 scrimmage yards, 102 scrimmage yards, 107, right? No, he's easily passing 100 scrimmage yards. These are a few of his games. 302 scrimmage yards, 198, 199, 187, 156. He's played 12 games, already has 1,766 scrimmage yards. Let me do the math right here. 1,766 divided by 12. That is 147 scrimmage yards per game. That's unbelievable. He has 13 touchdowns in 12 games. Had a game with over 300 scrimmage yards. He's just been on a tear this season. He's basically been 75% of Philadelphia's offense. And that's considering the fact that he plays on a team with Jalen Hurts, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, and he's already able to make this big of an impact. It's just unbelievable. And I know you also give MVP to a player whose team's doing incredible. Eagles have without a doubt been playing better than the Ravens. Ravens have gone 500 in their past 6 games. Eagles, 8 straight wins. I mean, I don't know how you don't give it to Saquon right now. I know the trend says, oh, we only give it to quarterbacks. Cooper Kupp wins Triple Crown. We only give it to quarterbacks. We have to make an exception because you have to follow the title. The title says most valuable player, and Saquon has been the most valuable player.
Matt, I got 3 issues with that. Number one, I tried to make this argument last year for Christian McCaffrey, who was, tossing up, all those numbers last year. And I know he was hurt for a portion of it. As a running back, as a dominant running back who could do it all, who was in one of the best systems in the NFL, a team that went to the playoffs. I think you can say a lot about what Christian McCaffrey did last year that you can with a guy like Saquon, a team that's gearing up for a deep playoff run, a guy that's been a huge contributor to a high flying offense, no pun intended there with the Eagles. But two other problems with that. Number one, you mentioned it. I hate to say it, but everybody in the football world knows that MVP is the quarterback's award. OPOY is reserved for everybody else. And MVP is really MVQ, most valuable quarterback, because that's what it's come down to these days. And then my last problem is I think that'd be all jolly and dandy if number 17 on the Buffalo Bills didn't exist. Mr. Josh Allen has just been very valuable. I don't know where the Bills would be without him, but if you want to take the trophy for its literal meaning and talk about a player that's brought the most value, you cannot tell me Josh Allen has not been that guy. You're looking at a guy who's approaching who's just outside the 2,700-yard mark, 20 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, the passer rating at a ridiculous 100.3 so far throughout the season. He's on pace to have one of his best seasons in the pros. He's already brought home the MVP once. The only problem with him last year was the interceptions where he tossed 18. This year he's only down to 5 and he's only on pace for 8 or 9. So Josh Allen has improved his game in every facet, and that's not even factoring the running stats. I mean, the guy's making ridiculous plays. We'll get to it. I don't even know what he did. He throw and caught a touchdown in the same play. That was absolutely ridiculous. I do think Josh Allen's the MVP, but I would absolutely love to debate you on that another time. For right now, let's go to the Sunday.
Real quick, I just want to say something. Not debating anything right now, but
yeah.
Saquon, I did some. I brought out the calculator and I did some stat times whatever he has now, time divided times 17 for games. He's on pace to get just over 18 touchdowns, and listen to this: 2,500 scrimmage yards. McCaffrey last season got 2,000. 2,500. 500 more scrimmage yards than McCaffrey. That's insane. That is absolutely unbelievable. And McCaffrey played, I know you said he was dealing with injuries. Not really. He played 16 games. He was actually that was, I think, his most healthy season in the NFL. But no, I just think that Saquon is on pace to do better than McCaffrey if you want to make that comparison. I got to give it to him.
How many touchdowns did McCaffrey have last year?
21. So it's 3 less, pretty similar. But McCaffrey does get a slight edge right there.
I think just as far as that comparison goes, obviously McCaffrey's been injury riddled, and unfortunately he's going to be shut down for the rest of this year with the tear of a tendon. But for last year, if we want to go off last year, I think McCaffrey and Saquon both have similar running styles. They have quick burst and they can get it done. They are also short yardage running backs at the same time where they can push the pile and be scrappy and pick up extra yardage. So let's move over to Christian McCaffrey's team, the 49ers, on Sunday Night Football. 35-10 in a blizzard in Buffalo. I don't know where that snow is. It's not in New York City. I really wish it was. But in Buffalo, it certainly was. They improved to 10-2, picking up the 25-point win. Nothing went right for the 49ers. They get destroyed by
Yeah.
Buffalo in optimal Bills weather condition. I think if you'd ask any Buffalo Bills fan, they'd say snow games are their favorite. And from a team from Southern California, that's got to be rough to go in there and play in the snow. Josh Allen with one of the more ridiculous plays that you will ever see. He throws the ball and then gets a lateral from Amari Cooper. They have him down as a receiving touchdown. I don't think, because it's a backwards lateral.
I was
Um,
literally gonna make this conversation. It
yeah.
should only be a rushing touchdown.
No, the thing is that he threw the ball first, so it's a forward pass. So I think any offensive player that touches it not via a fumble after that, like the immaculate reception, I think both guys got a receiving touchdown on that.
I
Uh
don't
no,
I don't
actually
see
no,
that.
because Cooper didn't get a touchdown, which is confusing
No.
because a lateral, and you also have to remember that a lateral isn't a pass because in football rules, if you take a pass and it's a backwards pass, it's a live ball, it's a fumble. So that's always
Yeah.
what they're like replaying. Was it a forward pass or a backwards pass to see if it's a live ball? So I think you're honestly right about that. Does it act like a fumble in that sense that he was like technically losing possession of it?
Also, even if, no, he wasn't losing possession whatsoever 'cause it was a clean lateral, and then,
No, I know,
obviously,
but is the lateral
it like,
technically a fumble?
does it count as that? I don't think
I mean,
so, but
I'm not a
that's
rules
obviously going into
expert.
more NFL rule book stuff that I don't know, but
Yeah,
also
same.
if you throw a backwards pass and it's like say it's even like a normal pass where quarterback just snaps it, wide receiver's like maybe an inch behind them and they throw it back to the wide receiver, that counts as a rushing play. The wide receiver gets
Yeah,
running
right.
yards on the play. So,
Because
I
because then they can also still throw it forward. You get one forward pass, but as many backwards as you want.
yeah, so I feel like I'm almost positive that shouldn't count as a, receiving touchdown,
Yeah, I was
and
thinking
then
about that.
I'm also, not sure how that counts as a passing touchdown because the player he passed it to didn't actually get in the end zone, but
Yeah,
I'm
it's
honestly that play was more interesting probably than the entire game itself, and, a lot more to talk about with that play than anything else, but the Bills have clinched the AFC East. Buffalo's the only team to have clinched their division so far, and then James Cook 14 carries, 107 rushing yards, and a touchdown. Brock Purdy had a career low in passing yards, only 94 passing yards in this one, 11 of 18. Christian McCaffrey obviously suffered a PCL injury and was placed on IR. He'll be out for at least 6 games, which would be the remainder of the season. And then
Mhm.
Jordan Mason was also put on IR after suffering a high ankle sprain. We'll see if San Francisco goes out to get another running back. I don't know. Is Elijah Mitchell still on the team? If he is,
No, he's not. They were also
no,
talking
he's not.
about Jerick McKinnon, I think, is signing him to the practice squad.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who's on their team and who they're potentially going to sign, but whoever they do sign, maybe consider
It's
picking them up in fantasy if you need a
it's
running
gonna
back.
be it's gonna be Isaac
Garendo, I believe.
Guardo as
Yeah,
their
but they
starting quarterback, and then I think they're just gonna put Juszczyk as running back 2 for now.
yeah, and I mean they have a great offensive line. We saw what Mason could do when he got that opportunity, so maybe we see Garendo do the same
Mhm,
thing. San Francisco has lost 3 straight games, and I mean, their season has been the definition of a disaster to go along with the
mhm.
Jets season, obviously. But, no, it's just been terrible for the 49ers. This one doesn't help whatsoever.
Yeah, things have taken a turn for the worse. Josh Allen, I mean, he only threw it 13 times because, well, it's a snow game, so you don't really throw the ball as much, but you do run the ball. James Cook, 14 carries, 107 yards. He got in the end zone, as well as Ray Davis, who also had a score in this one, and Mac Hollins also had a receiving touchdown.
Oh, by the way, can
Um,
Mac Hollins put on, like, shoes before the games?
oh, that
I
was
don't know.
weird. Let's not talk about that. That was weird. I mean,
Going barefoot in the snow is ridiculous,
that's
though.
no, that's ridiculous. But
Yeah.
yeah, 35-10 is your final score on Sunday Night Football. The Monday Night Football game, just for those of you wondering, is Denver and Cleveland. The Broncos are 6.5-point favorites at home at Mile High. Starting in matter of minutes, an 8:15 kick, and it's almost 7:40 right now. So, there's certainly problems on both sides of the field. Denver trying to strengthen their push for the playoffs at 7-5, but they're a bit injury riddled. But they're also coming off 2 straight wins. So we'll see. Any predictions for the Monday night game, Matt?
It's going to be a boring one. That's one prediction. But no, I have the Broncos in this one. The Browns get an extra boost of energy or whatever, inspiration to win games when they play divisional matchups. I just don't see the Broncos losing this one in any way whatsoever. Here's the thing. The Browns are coming off one victory. They're not winning 2 in a row. They're not good enough to win 2 in a row. Their defense isn't good enough to stop Bo Nix right now and the rest of the Broncos. Offense, expect a big game from Cortland Sutton and a Denver victory.
All right, you ready to move into our what are we calling it? Like the questions of the week or whatever?
Yeah.
Weekly wrap, Matt. Kick us off.
Yeah, new segment on the recap shows. Weekly wrap. We either give a hot take or ask a question at the end of the show. Now, I know this has kind of been brought up a little bit in recent weeks. Aaron Rodgers potentially being released. That was talked about. Following this pretty terrible game from the Jets overall, I think I have 2 questions, sort of. Is he going to finish the season for New York? If he does, is he going to return to them next year? Kind of a double barrel question there.
Let's see. We are in week 13. I do not think Aaron Rodgers lasts the entirety of the year. I think at some point they do go to Tyrod Taylor, and that's just because I'm not sure if this rumor was true or not. I'm pretty sure ESPN writer Rich Cimini, great guy, by the way. If you haven't heard my interview with him, make sure to check it out. But I'm pretty sure he did confirm that there was buzz around like week 5 of chairman and owner of the Jets and chairman CEO Woody Johnson saying that he wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers in week 5. Right? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane.
As a Hall of Fame quarterback, but that either happened for one of 2 reasons. Number 1, he was like joking around and just trying to say like this team needs to get back on track. Number 2, he was dead serious and he wanted to spark a change in the Jets organization and light a fire into that locker room. But I do think that as of right now, it's just that right now, yeah, he's not playing great football. That's obviously the simplest way to put it. But he has so much power, and as a guy that's no doubt one of the top 10 quarterbacks in NFL history, it's hard to bench him, right? We saw this with Brett Favre when he was a Jet, and he got injured. It's just old quarterbacks can't necessarily just play well in a new system just because they were once great. Aaron Rodgers' time has faded. He is no longer a good quarterback. His mobility is basically none, and that just it doesn't fly in today's game. I just think that the older you get as a quarterback, it's just so much harder to play at a high level because of all the limits. And as for if he plays next year, I honestly think just for him, I just think he wants to retire. I really don't think he has any interest in coming back to the Jets. I don't know if any other team is going to want him. He's taken some brutal hits this year. He is bruised and cut up. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he hasn't come out and said anything. He says he wants to continue playing with the Jets. I just don't. I think he's a bit too old, and I just think he wants to hang it up for himself and finish out his life. He can't play football forever. At some point, he's going to have to retire. And I think this is his last season, Matt.
I think it's business decisions both ways. If Rodgers decides to retire, that's a business decision in terms of, I just want to stop playing football. I don't want to risk any injuries.
Mm-hmm.
If the Jets end up releasing him or cutting him or whatever, that's a business decision on their end saying, we don't want to mess up our future. You might want to keep playing with us, but it's not worth it for us. And we understand there's some level of respect that we should show you, considering that we just got you 2 years ago, and we thought that you were going to be a really good quarterback for us for at least a few years. It hasn't really turned out to be that way, and you kind of just have to move on from that. NFL isn't all about making everyone happy. You got to make business decisions, and that's what the Jets have to do right here.
Certainly, and I think that another big thing is what the Jets do in this upcoming draft class. They're going to have a new GM. They're going to have a new coach, and most likely they're going to draft a quarterback in this draft. Really, depending on where they fall, or at least if they don't, they let Jordan Travis, the LSU, he's injured right. Excuse me, LSU, FSU, Florida State. He's injured right now, but he led the Seminoles to an undefeated year last year before a terrible injury sent him back multiple rounds. But yeah, you're right. It's not always about pleasing him. And if the Jets draft a different quarterback, yeah, you're right. He's going to have to be cut. But you also have to remember Tyrod Taylor only inked a 1-year deal. So his contract will also be up. So that would leave the Jets with one quarterback, and he's a guy that hasn't played an NFL snap yet. So not exactly the boat you want to be in, but you also have to remember, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but last time Trump was the president, Woody Johnson went to serve in the U.S. Embassy in England, and he could not act as chairman. So if he gets invited back by President Trump to do that, that would mean his brother, Christopher Johnson, would take over the duties. You know how much Woody Johnson has influenced the Jets, and he has close ties with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think as much for Christopher's brother, so he might just lead the Jets down a different road while his brother is busy doing something else. But we could honestly sit here for 3 hours and talk about Aaron Rodgers' future. It's time for my weekly wrap, and that is going to be, I'm going to ask you if they're right now, if the Bills played the Lions, who would win?
That's a
Right
really good
now.
question.
I
Best
mean,
best teams in each conference, obviously.
and maybe even the
Lions
Super
have won.
Bowl matchup right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily trust the Bills to beat the Chiefs come playoff time because we know how Patrick
Yeah,
Mahomes turns it up in the
certainly.
offseason. But for a regular season playoff matchup, if there was a regular season Super Bowl, it would be these two teams. And in terms of who I have winning, probably the Lions. That's a really tough question. Probably the
Disagree.
Lions. I mean, their offense is the best in the league. Josh,
Shaky game against the Bears on Thanksgiving.
it's fine. They can get past that. Every team has shaky games. It's a divisional matchup. We know how those games work. But Josh Allen can do whatever he wants. He can have a great stat line like he did last night. But no matter what, the Lions are going to have the better offense. The Lions have, I believe, are top 5 in both rushing yards allowed and passing yards allowed. Their defense has been very good so far this season. There's been multiple games where they've kept their opponents to, under 10 points. I know they kept the Jaguars under 6 points, and I know there's been a few more situations like that this season. I mean, these two teams are great, and I know that's obvious. That's obvious, but still, I got to give it to the Lions, especially if they played right now on a 10-game winning streak. Their offense is on fire. Jahmyr Gibbs has been a top 5 running back in the league. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league. It's hard not to go with this Detroit team.
I think you can make the same argument. I think the Bills have just been playing great team football. They beat a injury-riddled 49ers team. But hey, Matt, we're going to get the answer to this question in probably what I'm looking at as the game of the year, December 15th, 4:25. I'd be surprised if this game isn't flexed into the prime time, because right now it's set for 4:25, and this is December 15th, so 2 weeks.
Not Christmas game. I thought it said 25th. It's 15th. Never mind. Hello? Josh, can you hear me? I think we might have lost Josh for right now, but as he was saying, of course, the Bills and the Lions play each other in week, I believe that's 15. Should be an exciting matchup. 4:25 game. What Josh said is potentially the game of the year. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens in that one. Now, Josh, do you have, I know you were talking about the Bills and what they've done. Do you have the Bills?
Right now, yeah, I think I'd probably take the Bills, but it depends on what. Again, it's hard to predict what injury situations will be like at that point. Who will be in, who will be out, but straight up, both teams healthy. I think it's hard to pick against the Lions because of how good their offense is. I just think that the Bills have been playing magical football right now, and the Lions are they didn't play a great game in Chicago, and the Bills won me over with that game in the snow against San Francisco.
I don't think whatever case you make is the wrong case here. There's been a few games for the Bills that are like maybe a little bit questionable, I guess. You beat the Texans, or you lose to the Texans by 3. You probably should have won that game. You beat the Jets by 3. You definitely should have probably won by more in that game. Cardinals was a one possession. So there's been a few games where it's like it's pretty close in terms of how the Bills have played. They beat the Dolphins by 3 earlier this year. It's been a lot of situations where they might not necessarily be a 10-2 team like they are if things haven't necessarily gone their way in these late game situations. The Lions, on the other hand, we're talking about 40-point victories and half their game
Mhm.
season. I mean, what they have done is historical, to say the least.
Yep. I mean, that's gonna be a good game. Everyone get excited for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, can't thank you enough for coming on. Really do appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say to the people watching before we wrap things up?
Nope. See y'all next week.
Absolutely. For everyone who made it up to this point, can't thank you enough for watching. Again, I'm Matthew Heiserman alongside Josh Bolivar for your Week 13 Highlight Haven NFL recap show. And as always, we will see you next time.